Hi, and welcome to What's the Worst That Can Happen. I'm Abby Whitaker, and today I have Soph Wilson from Ontrack Studio joining me. I'm so excited for this chat. She is, I'm a little fangirl of her and her marketing brain. So I'm excited to pick it, and I'll let her give a little bit more of an extensive introduction of herself.
Oh, I love this. Thank you so much for having me on. You said it perfectly. I'm a bit of a marketer. My background's in marketing, started a podcast agency. We're sitting in the podcast studio at the moment. And since about, I actually need to work out how long I've been doing this for, but I don't know, let's say 5 years. It's definitely been about 5 years because I know that the least time frames. And I started like 5 years ago, and it's just sort of, I started from a passion of marketing, and then which catapulted me into the podcast space. And now I feel like I spend most of my time working with people, founders or creators on just the podcast stuff. And it's fun.
Yeah.
It's fun.
It's really cool. Soph was definitely, absolutely the first person on the Sunshine Coast to be promoting podcasts. And I think I was your second independent podcast you recorded, because you're working for companies within a marketing role as well, which we'll go into. But fun fact, 4 years ago I recorded 5 episodes of a podcast I never released, but and that was with Soph, and it was what introduced me to the world of podcasting. So
it's so crazy. You really were one of the first, and I even look back on not you specifically, but the content and the delivery of what we were doing back then and how much it's changed. Remember we were doing essentially graphics, with text popping up as audio for the snippets to promote the show. That was innovative content at the time.
Yeah.
And now the studio I've chosen to build because the demand and the how much the industry has changed so much. You have been right there, witnessing that and being a part of that.
It's beautiful, and actually right at the start as well, because you were in a different space.
Yes. You were at the boardroom studio.
Yes, I was at the boardroom studio.
We'll call it a studio with it in inverted commas if no one's watching.
It was very creative and it was pretty.
Yeah.
And actually, do you know what? I would love to dig up those podcasts and see. Actually, I don't know if they were videoed. I don't think we did full.
I don't think we videoed yours. Yeah, I brought the cameras in super kind of, randomly. And then, Yeah.
And then I did one episode here when the studio was in one of the other rooms inside this space. So,
so cool, so funny. I love that you were there for that.
Yeah,
because it was such a time for me. Obviously, very much starting out. Yeah,
I remember when I first met you, and when I first heard about your business, I thought it was such a clever business idea. I thought this is someone that I think is a clever business person.
Thank you.
Can you talk us a little bit how that idea came up, how it all got started?
Yeah, actually, it's a good point, because right now, you say kind of podcast studio, and it's of course, there's a real kind of shrug energy to it, because everyone in their stock is starting podcast studios, and I love that for the industry. But at the time, it really was I was in marketing roles. I was trying my hand at kind of freelance marketing, but I had stable companies that I was working for at the time, and a lot of freedom within those roles. So, I started my marketing career in an agency, and then I ultimately met this businessman, and who was I need you to come and work for my companies. And that's sort of how it came about. And within that role, lots of creative freedom, lots of strategic freedom, a lot of capabilities to test and try different things. So there was it would essentially be here's your marketing budget, do with it what you will, but you have to be able to justify your decisions. And
it's a dream client, right?
It is now. Back then, when I was very green, I was it wasn't imposter syndrome, it was imposter.
Yeah.
I was unqualified.
Yeah, right.
Underqualified.
So you're a little bit out of your depth.
I was a little bit, but or perhaps there were parts of the syndrome, and there was parts where obviously he saw in me what was there. But credit to him as a leader to, with the right person, and you make that decision, it really pays you dividends as a business owner, which is what I know now. But the time, there was parts of me that was just so unsure about this, and the stakes were so high. He had business partners overseas that were no bullshit people, like you really had to justify your actions. And the truth was I had no idea what I was doing in terms of, well, marketing is experimentation in itself, which is, I have like grace for myself then, because really that is what marketing is. But at the time it was like, okay, I'm really just like needing to, I guess like drive sales in these businesses. How can I do that? And it was, the parameters I had was, here's your budget, do whatever you want. And there were small things like, you know, promote sales or whatever within that. But I was like, okay, so content was a huge thing back then, still is, but huge back then. And I became aware of the fact that, you know, I went really deep into these businesses of like, I was really obsessed with Simon Sinek at the time. And he's all about like starting with why, and there being a bigger purpose to what you do. And in business, how people connect with the why, not with the what.
Yeah.
And so I kind of started there. And initially when I had this role, actually, I started with just implementing everything I learned from agency. So putting out content exactly how I was taught to. But then, you know, with the results actually completely on me at the end of the day, and those results not coming through from what I learned in the agency, I had to then get creative of like, okay, well, what do I do? Like what I've been taught isn't actually working for the bottom line of the business. Sure, we'd get views, but like I have to justify this to a big dog. I can't rely on views. So that's what led me to start going deeper, and I, you know, started looking into people like Simon Sinek and these thought leaders of like the bigger picture in business. And once I kind of like arrived in that space, I really worked with the brands to create, well, they were businesses. I worked with the businesses to create what I call a brand.
Yeah.
And at the time I was running with the business being the body and the brand being the soul. And that's sort of how I would do it. So to have, you know, all this like bigger picture, bigger meaning behind what you do in a business is the brand. And so once I kind of got that clear, and like, you know, everyone internal of the business was across it, it had a good impact on the internal business and the kind of already built community within that business. Then came like, okay, well, my role as the marketer is to, you know, grow the bottom line of the business, grow, you know, the audience and all these things. And I had to think about, okay, well, truth be told, we have this bigger purpose. We've got this like real difference, point of difference within our industries, both of them in different industries, but we look exactly the same as everyone else online.
Yeah.
So that's where I started to think of like, okay, what can I do to start actually showing this difference? Because in marketing, I'm a big believer in like you to show and not tell.
Yeah.
And so I started thinking about all the times I'd actually been emotionally affected by any content anywhere, or moved, or had sort of a transformation within myself from a business or from anything, because there wasn't much that businesses was providing, to be honest. There was like Nike.
Yeah.
And there was pretty much Nike and Patagonia and these really big budget businesses that could afford to put real production costs into their marketing. And I was like, okay, so they're the businesses doing it right. They've got emotion. I feel connected to these brands. How can I bring that into just an everyday, you know, brick and mortar service-based business on the Sunshine Coast? And I started to think, okay, well, when was I last affected emotionally by any content I'd seen? And it was podcasts. Like at the time I was like, you know, podcasts taught me so much. Like they changed my life really. Yeah. I'd lost my mum when I was young, and I was listening to podcasts, and I was just went on this self-development journey. And this is separate to my professional, you know, life. Yeah. But I'm like, that's the content that's like I'm feeling emotionally connected to. If those like podcasts brought out an offer, it would be a no-brainer investment for me if it was aligned. So it was those two worlds colliding, those like that real reflective nature in me of being like, okay, well, this is the standard I want to create for the brands. This is the way it's working for me. Why aren't we obviously doing this? Like, why aren't we creating this level of content for our businesses if we want to make that level of impact? Yeah. And so I pitched that to this businessman who I was working for, and I said, look, I'm thinking a podcast, and I actually pitched it as a content creation tool. So like, because we used to spend like, you know, $8,000 on a shoot for one of the companies, and that would get us content for like, you know, ads for a month. Yeah. But for social media, that would be like a week's content. And I'm like, that's $8,000. You know, the content was awesome, and it did work like for ads. But I'm like, this fatigues like that.
Yeah.
And like, you know, we need to create content at scale to like actually be relevant. And at the time it really was about that content, like getting out there. And so I was like, pitched it to him to say, picture this, you know, we get this, like we pay, you know, a quarter of that and get content for months.
Yeah.
And so that was what got him over the line. He's like, yeah, go for it. And then I looked around and I was like, cool, podcast studio near me, podcast studio, Sunshine Coast, nothing. And I'm thinking, podcast equipment hire, nothing. And then there was a library that was there, and I'm like, I saw that there was a library option, and I'm like, I can't. That's so unrelatable. Like that's not going to be, you know, for the commercial asset I'm trying to create here. It's not the vibe. So then I was like, okay, I'm going to buy all this equipment for these two businesses to create, and I was just like, I'll just hire it out to people till I get my money back. You know, it was like a couple of grand investment at the time.
Yeah.
And that was the start of Ontrack Studio. I used to carry around the equipment in a laundry basket to people.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I love it. That's so good. And so when you talk about that whole concept of this, obviously the creating the content and stuff, like that's totally relatable. But in terms of like just going a bit deeper,
Yeah.
what does a podcast provide a business or a brand? Because podcasting is not cheap. Unless you just do it all yourself, like it can be very affordable. But if you are outsourcing like editing and all that stuff, and obviously all the price of all the equipment, all like the time, the effort, the energy, and it's not like a business where you're like, yeah, let me sell my product and I'll get the money back. Like there's obviously it's not necessarily immediately a tangible return on business. Can you talk us a little bit through what a podcast actually provides for a business or a brand?
Yeah. So I can, and there's a couple of ways I want to answer this question. The first is when you're thinking about marketing activities, so from a business perspective, you've really got like two options. One is organic and one is paid. So when we think about like paid activities, that's the sort of stuff that you can track and you can have expectations of return on investment. So people tend to gravitate towards, you know, paid activities, like, and by that, for the audience, I'm talking about like Meta ads, Google ads, which is great. However, like what that means is for the business that is relying solely on paid activities is that you're at the mercy of a platform, and that you are, you know, if you've been in marketing for a while, you'll remember when you could pay to get a lead for like 3 cents. Now it's a lot more than that, like hundreds.
A lot more.
So that's an example of how it can negatively impact you to have just that activity, and that's just a non-biased opinion.
Yeah,
that's just a fact. Zooming out further, if I was not involved in podcasting at all, and this is sort of how I started my business, like, you know, I was like, okay, well, what's the best activity? What's the most ROI activity I can get with this budget? My opinion is that you need to have a holistic marketing strategy as a business, because if you don't want to be at the mercy of a platform, and you don't want to be, it's like if you were investing, like you want to diversify your investments. So if something happens somewhere, like you can still make money and you can still market yourself. So there's
So just to cut you off for a second.
Yeah.
So when you say holistic, you mean to bring in streams of marketing from that paid side and then also from the organic side?
Correct.
Okay.
And then to go even more than that, I would say, like, and this is an ideal space, because depending on what level of business you're at, you might not even be thinking about paid ads. You might be still in referral, and like, you know, when you first start your business and everyone's, you know, you're just doing it by word of mouth.
Yeah.
And so that I'm acknowledging that too.
Yeah.
But you want to ultimately, if you want a sustainable business, you need to have a diversified marketing strategy.
Yes.
And yeah, that's not new news to many people. However, you got to think about, so there's the part where in marketing you need to have the organic stuff sorted as well.
Yes.
And the point of marketing is to bring in new clients, bring in new audiences, so people who don't know you, to get in front of cold audiences. And to nurture them into like actually getting them as a client or as a customer, whatever your business model is. So from my point of view, and from like a marketing standpoint, if we went to university and did any sort of study on marketing, you would have been introduced to a marketing funnel. And all that means is like, it's it's positioned as a funnel, as in top of funnel, middle of funnel, bottom of funnel. Top of funnel is that talking about getting people's eyes on you. So these are people who you've never seen before, or they've never seen you before. The top of funnel is when they're seeing you for the first time. The middle of funnel is when they're in consideration, like, should I buy from this person? And bottom of funnel is when they're at their point of conversion and they buy from you. So I know you know that, but just for the viewers.
Yeah.
So
it's actually a very powerful tool to know and understand from the marketing world, because like for the audience listening, like a top of funnel activity could be like, you know, when you go onto a website and it pops up with put your email in here and you'll get 10% off. That could be like a top of funnel kind of thing, like just very basically
grabbing their, what's the word, contact information.
The data and giving them like a little something like, you know, 10% or whatever. But then, you know, I don't know what the statistic is at this point, but I know like as time goes on and as we're such instant gratification society, I think the touch point is 7 touch points. Yeah. So there's like 7 touch points before somebody actually buys from you.
So what it actually is it's 7 hours of interaction with your brand across 11 touch points on 4 different platforms.
Wow.
So that's what the guy who wrote Oversubscribed was, he like popularized this concept because it's kind of been a moving goalpost in the digital age, because, you know, it does take more now because we're so overstimulated. But yeah, it's really interesting. So like if you're thinking about marketing activities from a complete, like if you take a step back away from it, it's like you want something that's going to give you those stats in order to get them, and that's to get you from a stranger to a customer.
Yeah.
So you were talking though. Did you finish?
No, I think I was just saying that funnel and that concept of a funnel is a really good, simple thing for any business owner to understand how that works and like how a funnel works. So, for example, in my Pilates studios, well, actually, they're not mine anymore, but in a Pilates studio, what we would do is we'd do, say, like a 21-day program, which is like a low cost and it's getting lots of people in. And then the idea is that we convert half of those into, a nice number would be half of those, but we start with lots of fish and then we come down and then down that funnel to end up having like that people who are on ongoing paying long-term clientele.
Yeah, totally. So yeah, that's almost like a funnel within a funnel, because that's almost like a sales funnel, because it's like you've got the people they already would have known you in order to buy that offer. Yeah. And then they're in the consideration phase and then they would become a long-term client. But I think with marketing, because there's so much out there, you know, and truly like everyone's right and everyone's wrong. Like it depends on what side of the fence you want to go for. Like a lot works and if, you know, it might not work for you and all these things. But I think whenever I deliver like presentations, I recently did one, and I was just like, okay, let's just go back to the basics and let's talk about the marketing laws at play. So I'm not talking about strategy. I'm not talking about preference of podcasting or ads or anything. And this is one of them. This is like the marketing funnel is a law, like it's happening whether you tap into it or not. It's like people are becoming aware of you, considering you, and either buying from you or not, whether you're actually tapping into the potential of that or not. And the same thing applies for the marketing rule of 7, 11, and 4. This is what works. Outside of marketing, outside of business, that's how you become a friend. Like you need the 7 hours of interaction. And so I like to base my
Sorry, I just love that.
Yeah.
Like preach.
Yeah, preach.
Like we're talking about friendships.
Yeah,
as well.
exactly.
Yeah. Okay,
so whenever I go into marketing, I go through the lens of like human psychology as opposed to the trending strategic gains. And so if we go into that, like that mind frame of like, okay, well, what occurs to get someone from a stranger to a friend is those stats. It's like, okay, well, what's the best marketing activity I can do that gives me the best ROI to do that? And the reason why podcasting is that, if you do it correctly, and there's definitely, and we'll probably get into this a little bit later, there's definitely ways that you're underutilizing a podcast. But this is an engine that you can build that actually handles the whole marketing funnel for you. And the way that can work, if you want me to speak into it,
absolutely.
Is so like if we when you're a cold audience from the marketing funnel perspective, the customer's experience is they're problem aware, but they had no idea about a solution. So, you know, let's use a naturopath as a example of a business, and I'll use the example so everyone can follow along. If I'm at the top of funnel of a naturopath's funnel, I might be bloated and got gut issues, and I don't, this sucks. I've got bloated. I don't know what I'm doing. Then I might come across a reel that's like, if you've bloated and got gut issues, it's probably to do with XYZ. And in this protocol in naturopathy, we deal with that. So now I'm aware of a solution. I'm now in consideration phase. I'm like, oh, naturopath could help me with this issue. And so, but also in that phase, it's not just the naturopath that's a solution. Now they're aware there is a solution. I can actually heal my bloating. Then it's also like, oh, there's a pill that a doctor has that I could do. There's also a protocol, like I could fast. There's all these, from your customer's perspective, there's all these considerations that they're going through of like, okay, how can I want to heal this bloating. I know it's possible, and what am I going to do? So from the business perspective in that phase, you want to be providing them with the information of why they should deeply consider your option as opposed to all those other ones that I mentioned. Then in the bottom of funnel from the customer's perspective, it's their problem and solution aware, and they're making a decision. So they're going to buy from whoever gave them the right information, and that's an aligned choice for them. So zooming back out, that why I say it's a marketing law is, again, that's just happening. That's what your customers are going through, your clients are going through. So from a business perspective, you want to be creating assets. And I use that term because I believe content can be either an asset or a liability to actually help your customer make the decision that's going to work also in your business's favor, and also help your business repel people that it's not for. Yeah. And it's just like, so that's the frame of mind I'm in when I'm thinking about a marketing strategy, podcast aside. Now, introducing the podcast, the reason why that works is because if you're doing a video podcast, which is always the way right now, like don't even bother with the audio. Just kidding. You can bother with it, but we can go into the pros and cons of that. But when you have a video podcast, you've got the potential to tap into the SEO capabilities of the search giant Google, because YouTube is owned by Google. And if you create the content correctly and actually optimize it correctly in your upload and distribute it correctly or optimized, then you're going to have literally people who have never heard of you be viewing your content due to recommendation features on YouTube and et cetera, like that. Yep. But also the solution aware people of like, you know, ways to stop bloating. Yes. To simplify it. So they're searching, and then also you're able to invite them into your offer within that and nurture them in. You're also giving them a library of content to give them the 7 hours of interaction they require. And that video becomes your 11 touch points, like the same amount of effort that goes into creating one reel you can do in a freaking podcast. Like, so you can get as many, you know how many snippets you can get from an hour of content, or even 20 minutes. Yeah. So you've got, you know, multiple clips that's going on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube Shorts, Facebook Reels, LinkedIn. You can start to see how this touch point is easily happening without any, you know, extra effort or creative output from you. And then also, not to mention the Spotify and Apple is also at play here. So that you've got your podcast platforms. And so in terms of the funnel, that's already happening. Yep. Then in terms of the consideration phase of what you're doing, they're able to actually go from the person randomly searching for something on TikTok. Like, you know, when you can look up, you know, bloating protocols or whatever on TikTok. Yep. They see a snippet of the podcast. They see it's got a long form. They go from TikTok all the way to listening to your 20 episodes to signing up for it, like inquiring with you, and without you actually lifting a finger. So it's this like sort of self-liquidating practice and activity that's creating assets. It's supplying you with the activity required to hit all these parts, and also all the other benefits of what's required in today's marketing, which is like your face to your brand, because of the nature of like, you know, AI, and we can get into that as well. Like it's getting really hard for brands, and actually I don't even say getting really hard, because I did call this back 5 years ago when I started the business. It's like the reality is you could be the best choice for your customer, but you're not showing that because you everyone looks the same on a two-dimensional feed. Especially if you're not putting your face and your voice to what you're saying.
Yes.
It's not memorable. And so therefore I'm like, oh, well, as a busy founder, I know what I'm doing for an hour instead of whatever else I could be doing is sitting down and just recording
Yeah, because people want to buy from the person, not from
it's back to the why. It's back to the why.
Yeah.
The deeper purpose behind what you're doing, and they're going to connect with your why more than the what. There are so many different naturopaths, Pilates studios, marketers out there, but why are they choosing you?
Yeah, exactly. And I think also just to take it back to what we're talking about in terms of that content, when you talk about diversifying that content across all of these platforms, you can also take those snippets from podcasts and actually put them onto your paid ads as well.
Excellent point. And that is absolutely, like, I don't speak about this a lot because it is a trend, like, right now. But right now, like, paid ads, like, I have an offer at the studio where people come in to record just things that look like podcasts because of this, because the podcast look like content is performing really well, especially in a paid ad space. And even if that trend dies off a bit and we're all sort of like calling that maybe they don't have a podcast, they just got a mic in front of them, it's not so much the look of the ad, but it's the substance that's required to get people over the line these days. So what was once like a graphic, like come try Pilates at Inflow, that would have attracted people in signups, now requires more like, I need to see why this Pilates studio is the right choice for me. And just using that as an example, but people are taking longer to make decisions, and they need to see, you need to be accountable to closing knowledge gaps for your clients. That's what I call it. It's just as simple as closing knowledge gaps. Like, what do they need to know in order to know that they're the right choice, that you're the right choice for them?
Yes, I love that.
It's really that simple.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do they need to know that you're the right person for them?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's almost like that that value. It's like the value add or the providing value. But the information and the value that you're providing is actually a solution as well.
Yeah, exactly. I'm also really aware of the fact that, just because I'm in the weeds of this actual process for a lot of founders, and they'll come to the point where they're across why this matters, and then we come into like the actual production of their content. And what a lot of people face is this like unawareness of what their superpower actually is in terms of like closing that knowledge gap. And, I think it's because as founders, we get really caught up in this word knowledge. And, we think we need to know the how-to in order to provide value to our clients or our audience. And that's just not the case anymore. It's actually like how-to content is dying because of AI, because you can go to ChatGPT and say, hey, how do I, what's my marketing strategy? It'll tell you. The how-to is so easily accessible to everyone now.
Yeah.
So it's perfect because it allows the people behind the microphone or in front of the camera to actually express something that's way more deeper than the how-to, which is actually what has always converted better. But it's this dissonance in people's mind because they're like, well, I don't know enough. Like, I don't know enough about what it is that they need to know in order to do this thing in order to buy from me. But even if we don't even put the buy from me there, it's like I don't have enough knowledge to give my audience for them to think I'm an authority on this. And I'm calling it out because it's actually something that everyone feels from my experience on some level. It's a spectrum for sure. Like some people feel it deeper. But, the beauty of really good content is when it's coming from a place of, it's actually the content creators or the founders' ability to ask a question and to thought provoke and to emotionally activate the audience as opposed to teach them the how to.
Yeah.
So it's actually more about perspective shifting, thought provoking, and actual expression, because that's what the connection, like, people talk about vulnerability and that's not coming on. It's not coming on microphone or camera to talk about your breakup.
Yeah.
It's actually just being vulnerable in the place of being able to say what you're currently your position is on a topic within your industry, obviously. We're talking about business things. So like if I was to come on microphone and just go, what do I actually vulnerably think about the podcast industry? Like no one, like people would listen to that, people would connect with it more than they'd say, hey, if I got on mic and say how to start a podcast.
Yes.
You know?
100%.
And the challenge for the creator, the founder, is to give themselves grace in that moment, because guess what? Your perspective might be perceived as wrong by other people. And this is actually the true block that people are facing in their content and in their marketing, that if they were able to just be wrong potentially, like, because the reality is I could be wrong in my perspective.
Yeah.
That's really what the hurdle that people have to overcome in order to create content that truly connects with their audience and converts them.
They have to be okay with being wrong. They have to be okay with potentially
being misunderstood,
being corrected, being misunderstood, people deciding that they don't like them, or they're not their cup of tea, or being challenged.
Exactly. And the irony of it is when you step through that fear of like being, you know, people say cancelled, but no one is necessarily.
I feel like cancel culture is not a thing anymore.
Yeah. But it's just like, but you know, if that is a fear, go for it. But the irony is you step through that fear of being misunderstood and saying too much, or being wrong, or being cancelled, and the opposite happens, because the truth is that everyone, and think about yourselves, like, you know, listening to this, like think about the last time you actually were affected by a piece of content or by a business, or what actually caused you to purchase from someone. It wasn't because they were the most perfect how-to knowledgeable genius in the world. It was because you related to them, and it was because they shaped you in some way, they affected you or activated you in some way. So it's like really getting comfortable, really getting real with what it actually takes to connect with someone, and doing that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And I think it's just like, it just comes back down to like how you make somebody feel.
Yeah. People remember how you made them feel, not what you actually said.
Yeah, exactly. For me personally, I found that not only like in my business life, but in my personal life, in my personal happiness, everything shifted a few years ago when I just decided to stop giving a fuck. And when I say that, it sometimes can come off as a little bit harsh. I have an open mind. Like, I'm a very open person. I'm open to other people's opinions. I don't really have a thing where I feel like I need to be right, or like prove people right, or be defensive. And I have been like that in the past, but like, I think just generally as my personality isn't like that, and I'm open, but at the same time, like when I stopped caring about like what people thought, you know, and we briefly spoke about this off camera, is like, when I first started my Pilates studios, I did it because it was cool. Like, I wanted people to think I was cool. I wanted to, it was coming from that. It was not coming from a like, this is a business move.
Yeah.
It was coming from like okay, I need to make some money and I want to be like a cool girl.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And so I was saying to you, like, when I do my next business, I just reckon it's just going to be something so uncool.
Yeah.
Potentially something that's like so needed. Actually, I kind of already maybe know what it is. Who knows? But, you know, I think that is a superpower, to not like, to be okay with not being everyone's cup of tea.
Agreed. It's just so funny because it's like the very thing that, you know, we actually have all gone through on some level of like, oh, this is like, you know, everyone wants to grow their business and grow their brand, right? In the business space anyway. The irony is that we all want to grow our businesses and our brands.
Yeah.
And it's like, I can tell you this is how to do it. And this is, you know, what's required is to get on camera and just express.
Yeah.
Naturally.
Yes.
With a few, like, you know, frames. Like, I help my clients like frame it so it's going to be put into language of how their client is going to, their audience is going to receive it. There are obviously a few little things that you can do, but really it's actually that simple to just get on and share your wisdom.
Yeah.
Where you're at right now. That's all it takes, yet no one's doing it.
Yeah.
Or not no one, but people struggle to do it. And I really believe that's, again, why podcasting is such a powerful tool for business, is because, you know, no one's prepared to do it. It's easier to stand behind a two-dimensional feed and say you're marketing.
Yeah. Or put a few words on top of a photo.
Exactly. Way easier. You can outsource that. You can hire a VA. For you to actually get behind a microphone and get in front of a camera is hard. Like, it's just like, even universally, the vibration shifts. You're going to attract more people.
Yeah,
like,
totally.
It's like, what if it was that simple? Like,
yeah, totally.
It is.
And I think, like, bringing that back to podcasting, we've spoken about this before, is that you've mentioned that that is what a podcast does, is it provides depth.
Yes. Yeah.
In a brand. Can you speak a little bit more on that?
Yes. So I'm very anti reach-based marketing because it doesn't work. Basically, like, this is what, when I was in the agency.
When you say reach-based, can you just quickly explain what you mean?
So what I mean is where you have a whole marketing strategy based on how many eyes are going to see that piece of content. And people will fight me on this, and that's awesome. But, you know, people chase this reach because they believe that is what is going to grow their brand. And granted, it might grow your followers, and it's definitely going to, like, make your numbers look good, and that might give you a pat on the back. But when it comes to investment, which is what we want from business, and we want people to invest in our products and in our services, that requires depth. That requires people to connect with you on a deeper level, and it's definitely my analysis of why the 7-11-4 rule exists.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm actually writing an entire book on this because I just feel like it needs to be, it's just so hard to explain in less, because it's an in-depth concept, because it's about depth. But the top line facts about this is just like, if you don't connect with your message on a deep level, you cannot expect someone else to connect with it on a deep level.
Yeah.
And this is what I've seen, like after studying the brands that I have, after working with the founders that I have and actually executing on these strategies and seeing what's worked. It's like, okay, I've got something that works. The podcast thing works. This is an engine that I have now know works.
Yeah.
But why?
Yeah.
Why is that working? And this is where it basically comes down to, like, the depth psychology framework that people use. Either they're using it and they don't know it, or they're using it with intention, and that's what's working.
Yeah, okay.
And yeah, it's really, I believe that depth-based marketing is what's going to differentiate people in the next year or two.
Yeah. And even if we look at in other areas of marketing, say, even if we look at, like, Instagram and, like, the influencer world.
Yeah.
Like, we've moved so far away from, like, perfect influencer, perfect picture thing. Like, the audiences want, you know, the rundown mums, the mums doing it all. I'm just talking about mums because I'm a mum, but
mum talk.
Yeah,
You're
mum talk.
talk.
You know, like the plus size, the real, the unfiltered kind of, like.
Exactly. And this is the thing, like, even if I take, like, anything, any good creator right now, if we even take business away, like, it's like you look at what they're doing, and it might seem like the strategy is to be messy and to be, like, whack, but you go and do it and it doesn't work for you. Yeah, that's because it's not because it's messy that it's working. Yeah. It's because it's authentic and it's got the depth.
Yes.
That's what the audience is getting from it. Yeah. So, like, I find it interesting how people, and actually I take my hat off to the people that are trying these things, because they're actually in the ring, you know, giving it a shot. But what I think people, or business owners in particular, lack when they go to actually implement strategies is that they replicate the external features of what content is that is performing well, but they're not actually grasping why.
Yes.
And that's where the depth comes in.
Yeah, 100%. And I know we're going a tiny bit away from podcasting, but, like, this is the thing with, like, content, is that everyone wants to go viral, or, you know, everyone's, like, copying these, like, trends and stuff, and it's like, and this is the reach-based marketing thing you're talking about. It's like, yeah, cool, your thing could go viral, but what of those people? Those people are just looking at it because it's a funny piece of content. They're not buying from you.
Not connecting with it.
They're not connecting with it. They're just like, oh, cool, that's a funny piece of content that's trending and it's gone viral. Like,
yeah, totally. And that's exactly right. And you can do depth-based marketing without a podcast. but fuck, it takes a lot of work.
This podcast is brought to you by the AW Academy, a brand built for ambition, designed for dreamers who seek success and strength in every endeavour. Check out the link in the show notes for aligned products, courses, and free materials.
All right, so picking back up, I would love to talk to you about, you mentioned earlier about YouTube and how in this like sort of day and age, I don't know why I'm saying day and age, I feel like that's
What
like
the
an
hip kids are doing.
old-fashioned, yeah.
What
all
the kids are doing these days. YouTube seems to be the thing.
That video is like such a big part of it, and YouTube particularly, we've spoken about this before about YouTube, and I was kind of like, oh yeah, that's just like, it wasn't really on my radar as to why I was doing my podcast, for example. I was mainly filming for the snippets for other platforms. But since then I have been utilizing my full form YouTube videos and seen huge success there. So can you talk us through that a little bit more?
Basically with YouTube, you have like optimization tactics that you can tap into within the upload process, which will allow your video to be presented to the people you want it to. And there's actually like layers to this, so that we won't have time to go into all of it today. But like if you look up or think, brainstorm, get ChatGPT to like start you off, like what search terms your ideal audience are looking for with regards to your content, because obviously topics can be broad. Like today we're talking about marketing. I'm sure you could talk about motherhood to the next day and like, you know, so if you did this for every episode, you can actually allow your podcast to be put in the place of people who are likely to, you know, get something from it. So the reason why YouTube is such a benefit for podcasts in general is because you have the capability to get it viewed by people who aren't already in your audience. Because you can, you know, most people, the bare minimum would be like, you know, put it on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, which there is discoverability tactics to a Spotify upload, which, you know, in studio we do like all the time, obviously. But the reason why I talk a lot about YouTube is because comparatively it's like, you know, Spotify is very basic as opposed to YouTube. Spotify, really the strategy comes from the titling, which is just one element of what YouTube gives you access to. So there's tags, there's chapters, there's all these things that you can do. There's thumbnails that you can actually do in order to get your show seen. And what that gives for a business is like, yeah, you know, top of funnel energy. So yeah, YouTube is a must, but the thing with YouTube is the expectations. Like the reason why people resist it a lot of the time can be because the standard is so much higher. Like we expect more from our YouTube creators. You're now going up against Mr. Beast in terms of what people are actually used to seeing on the platform. Like the production level requirement tends to be higher, but also again, like we think about content creation from a standpoint of, are we going to create an asset or not necessarily a liability, but like, you know, if you were to invest a bit higher in your production, that means the shelf life of that piece of content is going to go so much further than if you were to just record a podcast on Zoom with your shitty earphones hanging out and like mess, you know. So the investment is higher, but the dividends pay. So that's sort of like the thing with YouTube is that, yeah, you'll get on there and people will have something to say if your sound's a bit off. Like there'll be comments because there's no shame, and it's just because the standard is higher there. To be honest, podcast is coming up to that standard anyway. Yes. So it's actually, you know, that's why I say I'm like, well, two birds, one stone. Actually, several birds, one stone, because you're getting all the social media content as well. Because again, you think about what you used to be able to do on social media to get like, you know, if we were going to go for a reach-based strategy to get views, to get buy-in, to get engagement, it used to just be a graphic.
Yes.
Now it's not.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's basically the thing. And I think people resist YouTube because they don't understand it.
Yeah, and I think that there's this energy around business owners, and I hear it a lot where they're like, oh, it's just another platform. And I just think, do you know what? I get it, but also we are so lucky in this day and age that we have all these free platforms that we can market on. We don't have to pay for a billboard.
Yeah.
We don't have to pay to be on the side of a bus. And also like that kind of marketing is like, I feel like even back in the day, it would have been like boring, cool. We're just creating a graphic it's like we get to be creative. We get to like create our own marketing. And I get that for business owners. Like if you're a business owner and you're passionate about naturopathy, you don't really want to like create content because you just want to focus on being a naturopath. But creating content, say for example, for a naturopath in a podcast, you're hitting all these birds with one stone because you are talking about something you're interested in. During that conversation, you're creating solutions for people and telling them what they don't know that they need to know to buy from you. And you're also just talking about something you love and creating content at the same time.
Exactly. People are like, I don't want to get on camera. I'm an introvert. All this stuff. And I'm just like, you know, your alternative, like let's be real. There's an expectation of business to be on social media. So let's just start the conversation there. Yeah. And so I say, well, what's more natural? You writing a script, putting it behind your phone and filming that? Like, you know, that's not natural to anyone, even if you love the camera. It's not a natural thing. The most natural thing, and again, taking it back away from marketing, away from business, let's go human, is conversing.
Have a conversation and then pull the bits out of there.
Exactly. And again, there's too much focus on how, and it's funny because I'm in this industry that is built on curating content and trying to get audiences to buy into what you're saying. But like the reality is you focus so much less on that and just on like, you know, and it goes back to like why I started the business is like the brand, when you actually have a purpose behind what you're doing is what will attract the audience, which will get the buy-in.
Yeah.
So if you are a person who really believes in naturopathy and the healing benefits of naturopathy, or you really believe in, you know, the power of Pilates or what Pilates can do for someone, or the power of marketing or anything, like you absolutely should be using, like in my book, I call it the wisdom leverage system. It's about actually speaking naturally, getting it on camera, and then getting that wisdom leveraged to the nth degree. So you get, you're tapping into the algorithm's power, but you're not catering to it. You're not feeling smaller because of it, which is how we all end up in marketing. It's like no one's making moves because they either don't feel good enough, they're overwhelmed, they don't know what to do, they don't know what their audience wants. It doesn't matter what your audience wants. What matters is that your wisdom gets out there, and that will naturally attract people.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just it's clever. It's a clever way to do things naturally and organically.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
And if you don't like, you know, be on camera, ignore it.
Yeah, exactly. Don't look at it.
Don't look at it.
Yeah.
And you know, like that's why this is so easy. Like it's easy. There is, you know, obviously you go through things when you first do it. Like editing is never easy because I think outsource that as soon as you can, because like you obviously it's not natural to look at yourself. But the actual, if we took away all of that stuff, it's the most natural thing. It's the most it's the easiest way. And from what I know in actually delivering this service to people, it works too.
Yeah.
So like the people are so attached to other social media strategies that aren't working. And that's what I don't get.
Yeah.
So it's like you pay an agency to create like short form content for you, surface level shit that's not actually changing the bottom line for you and only giving you outlay of expenses each month. And you're holding on to that with a tight grip.
Yeah.
Is it because I think there's something underlying. It's because you've got something limiting you in actually just sharing where you're at.
Yeah.
And sharing your wisdom exactly how it is.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Thank you. I love that. You just called out everyone.
Sorry.
That's what we want. Okay, so leading from that, podcasting.
Yes.
Do's and don'ts. Like what is the thing? Not a list of do's and don'ts like what I can ask AI, but like what are the kind of like what are people doing that are going to have not a successful podcast but leveraging it versus not?
Okay, so there's two parts. There's the actual podcast, and I always talk about a podcast, this long form, as the long-term asset. Like we're expecting dividends. So this is the do's, if you will, is you want to put enough resources, energy, time into that, that you're going to be happy that to get it to that point where it's actually going to pay those dividends. So what that looks like is as high production as you can muster.
Yep.
Because of the performance capabilities of that, it's going to look like the content that you're actually speaking to is something that is true for you. It's really common for podcasting, and especially with like, you know, the 5 years down the track since, you know, I started, is that that every podcast can sound the same. Who like we're parroting the same information, and it's not going to work in the way that you want it to. So if you want to, whether it's for a business or just for a podcast, you need to be aware of the fact that you want to bring something new to the table. And the easiest way to do that is to be like your honest perspective. So not parroting the book you read, but actually integrating the information with you, sitting with your wisdom on that. And sharing it from that place.
Yes, I love that. That's a really great, simple explanation of that.
Yeah. Integration is really important. And so, that's what I would say for content. There's also something I want to point out as well, because the term is long form content, but not long form for the sake of the length.
Yes.
Like, I'm not talking, people like, how long should my podcast go for? I'm saying, and I say, as long as it takes for you to say what you need to say, and even better if you leave the listener wanting more, to be honest. Long form is more so about depth form. Spoiler, like, of course I'm going to link it to that, but like, it's about the depth of what you're saying. Can you relay the complexity of what you actually mean in this? And often long form can be, and I'm the biggest, like, I'm the first person to do this. Like, my long form content is always quite short because I'm very straight to the point. Long form, really what I mean, if we're talking about from the lens of depth, is potency, which can be quite short. It might, like, if you just say how it is, if you're talking about something that you believe under the umbrella of what you're sort of talking about, it can be quite short. Like, it can be very potent and moving. And the point of your long form is actually to shift and activate your audience, not to be super long and boring and waffly.
Yes.
You know, when you've got a guest on and or a co-host, you have the natural inclination to make it longer, which is awesome because you can get even more clips from it. You can get even more light bulb moments for your audience, and that's great. But from the lens of a business, the point of your long form is actually to give an activation, to thought provoke, to emotionally connect with your audience, and that can be shorter than you think. Especially when you're going through going down the avenue of YouTube, the shorter the better. Or the most you want to cut the fluff.
I love
where
that.
possible. So that's with the content. In terms of the way to, I guess, like, leverage, like what I go into in my book is very much about like this leverage system. So the wisdom, the distilling your wisdom is in the long form. And so that's perfect. Then the leverage system is all about, okay, how do I distribute this content in a way that's going to bring the most attention onto this wisdom that I've just created? And that comes into, you know, clip selection. You want to be thinking about what, like, you know, the context of like what you want. So if you want someone to like buy into what you're speaking about, maybe start with, it's really simple. You know, this is like, people pay thousands and thousands of dollars to get this advice from, you know, marketing consultants, but it's really this simple. It's like, what first 3 seconds are going to grab the attention of the person on the feed? So selecting your clips from that with that lens. And then distributing them across all platforms in a way that they're going to resonate with those audiences, and it does look different across platforms variously. This is why I have a business. Like, the agency side of what we do is actually because, yes, we've got the studio to record the content, but then we edit it so it's like got the potency required. But it really is, in my opinion, the power of it comes from the distribution system, because we're actually giving you what you need to distribute it, to get it across to all audiences. And so but that's the long and short of it. Is like, pick the best clips that are like, you know, that are going to get the attention, and doing it across all your platforms as much as possible and scheduling that content so it doesn't need to be the founder who does that stuff. Like founders get overwhelmed from their marketing because they think, well, I've got to do all this. No, you have to get behind the microphone and share your wisdom.
You have to show up, show your face, share your wisdom.
And then you need to build a leverage system and partner with people, like invest in either people to do that, or train your staff to do that.
Yeah.
Know what you can outsource, absolutely. But don't outsource your wisdom.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, cool. And so to wrap it up, you've spoken about this book. What's it called?
Oh, I don't know yet. I've got a few working titles. But it's going to be, I think I'm going to call it The Content Paradox.
Yeah. Oh, love that.
Yeah, because it's really about it's a paradox, and it's all about how to get more clients with less content.
Love it. When is it coming out? When can we get our hands on it? Can I get
Do you want to read it as and give me feedback on it? Because
yes, please.
Because I've got a manuscript that I'm working with now, and I'm in the stages of editing, and I would love someone's feedback on it that I trust. Or care about your perspective. So I would love to do that, and we can take that offline. But when it's coming out, I don't know. I want it to be perfect.
Yeah.
And I do actually want to go through. I wanted to get a group to give me real feedback and make sure that it's got enough depth and enough substance to for this to be truly actionable. So, but I've got the first draft done. So I'm by the end of July, I would like to think. It's now May. Yeah. But if hopefully earlier,
So do we think a 2025 release?
Definitely.
Is it going to be a hard copy or a digital
It's going to start as digital. I'll get some printed, but I think that the thing for me with the digital and print thing, I'm the point of this book is to share this advice and this system with people, and I don't want to have to charge much for it, you know. And when you look into the production costs and all of that stuff of an actual book and then the delay to getting it to people, I'm just you know what, I'm going to start with an ebook. I know my audience are going to be across that. Yeah. And then, we'll go from there. And if I want hard copies. Yeah. But yeah.
So exciting. And then in terms of the studio, so we're sitting in Ontrack at the moment. Beautiful setup. What services do you offer within your Ontrack business?
Ontrack business it's a production agency essentially. Yep. So we have people that come in to just hire the studio and then they might have their own teams editing their podcast, which is awesome. But we also offer production packages for people, which are all inclusive of the recording, the editing, and most importantly, that distribution help. I'm actually at the moment coming up with, and sort of the book has really inspired this within me. I'm actually going to create a program because to me, this is very simple. I've been doing this for years. Yeah. But my main focus is going to be helping people to create the content, distill their wisdom into the long form content. And then it's going to be an all-inclusive, where we do all the distribution. Because I know myself, I don't like to do that. I get my team to do it. Yeah. And that's my biggest project at the moment outside of the book is creating this program to kind of give what the service of Ontrack already does, which is the production, but also the extra support of for someone who hasn't got an existing podcast or maybe does but doesn't feel like it's really themselves, it's not authentic, it's not converting, it's not doing what they want, to come into this program and then learn what I can give, have that support, the actual coaching with me. Yeah. And then, get the results through the what we know works, which is the distribution system.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah. So basically you're creating a program, but outside of that, you've got the option of hiring the space. Yeah. Hiring the space and also having everything done for you. Yeah. And then on top of that, you've also got sort of I guess a marketing package.
It's like a marketing package, which is podcast. It's the wisdom leverage system.
Yeah, you're not marketing without the podcast, but the pod. Yeah,
yeah, it's exactly. But it's giving the whole everything you need. It's teaching people what is natural to me, which is putting things in language that land with their audience. It's giving them the frameworks and the script scaffolding that's people kind of need, the frameworks when you're first getting started, and the practices that are going to allow you to be able to share. Because it's funny, like, and like I was saying before, like working with founders on this stuff, it's like the how-to is actually, you know, I've given it on this podcast, right?
Yeah.
But then they come up with the challenge of like, you know, you're always you're faced with like, oh, what I have to say isn't important, what I have to say isn't good enough. And so it's really going to be about supporting you through that and not being thrown off by that, expecting it, and then having, you know, the support from me and the group to actually, you know, move through it, dissolve that, move through it, and actually get the results.
Yeah.
So it's a holistic opportunity for people to actually, yes, get the production, get the, you know, all the things that you think you need, but then also what I know you'll also need.
Yeah.
Which is, the support.
Yeah. Love it.
Yeah, it's
Awesome.
exciting.
Okay, cool. Well, I feel like we have covered so much today.
Yeah.
Is there anything we haven't spoken about that you'd like to add?
No, I think we've,
Oh, actually, I do want to add one thing that I know is very important when podcasting.
Yes.
Consistency.
Yes, of course.
Because I think, and I've done it myself, start a podcast, build momentum, drop off.
And why do you think you drop off?
Because, well, I think for me, why did I drop off? I guess it's just like it's a bit of effort.
Yes, I agree. I think it's effort, and it can be also just like space. And by space, I mean time, but I call it space because you can, you know, time is like we'll fill our time. Yeah. But it's like having the capacity and the space to actually do the content, and, you know, sharing wisdom is, you know, is a lot.
But I think it's also because it's like you said, it's a bit of a long game.
Yes. And it's not an immediate, like
it's not providing immediate things. So then it's not prioritized. So for me, when I restarted back up my podcast, I'm like, this is going to be consistent and it's priority, because if I actually want it to do what I want it to do, it's not going to be, it might not be in the first month. It might take a little while.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, that's it. It can be demotivating, but I think as well, like, you know, when for someone who's like kind of listening along and being like, oh, this makes sense for me, I'm going to obviously start a podcast. I'm like to call it out, like you will find that it's a lot more work. You will kind of question if you've like what you want to say, and you will come up against all these barriers. So like my advice for these people is to like set up systems and collaborators or whatever to make sure that you will be supported through that. And like, you know, for me, it's funny because like my business is actually like to do the editing, like the podcast production of the production of the podcast. But because, you know, we're so busy and we've got all this stuff, like team is always doing client work, that Big Brand Energy, my podcast, gets put on the back burner always. And I have a rule that I don't edit my own podcast because I don't think it's natural. So it's like funny. This is what I think, like for people who don't have a production company that they're partnering with, like Ontrack, that's what they would face. They're like, oh God, I've got it all done, or I've done that, but I haven't got the system or the team to actually edit it. And I'm like, funny that. I mean, I just need to prioritize my staff's tasks. But I'm like, it was really like, it was an initiation for me to be like, oh, this is what people face. Like, you know, it's you need to set your systems or your people up to do it even when it's busy or whatever it's required. Because I think that's a big part of it as well. Because I've lost momentum with my podcast, with the book writing and all this stuff. But then, you know, also team has just not been editing it.
Yeah. And like, I mean, I can attest to that as well. Like first time around, I had like a package where, it was getting done for me. And as soon as that finished, I stopped doing it. Yeah. And I'd planned on doing it, like pink it up. But then this time around, I've got an ongoing editor. I've got someone who's uploading it and
doing it all.
Doing it all, like picking the snippets, all of that stuff, like even to the point of scheduling in my calendar, because obviously I had a baby. So I was like, well, I want to remain consistent through this time. I had to be super prepared. I had to do lots of interviews. I did it. Yeah. And
it's thanks to the system and the people. And this is why in in our packages, we now include all of that. Like we don't offer just editing and here's your content. Yeah. It's just not how we roll, because we want our podcasters or founders to get the results. And like I promise the results, but I need to set up my packages to make sure that the results are getting. And a big part of that is that that collaboration and that like whatever you need to do in order to get your content actually edited and distributed. Yes. Because that will, and consistency is super important to circle back. Like really like even algorithmically, like on the Spotify and Apple podcasts, like you will perform better if it's consistent. They favor content that are uploading quickly, but also from your audience engagement perspective, like you'll be flicked to the bottom. Like people,
Yeah, because you lose trust if you
Exactly.
are there like every second week and then all of a sudden you're gone for 3 months.
Exactly. So yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, well, I think we should wrap it up.
Yes.
But thank you so much for coming on.
You're
I feel
welcome.
like this is literally just full of little gold nugs.
Thank you so much.
And yeah, I loved filming in here. I'm gonna start doing this more often.
Oh, I love that. Thank you so much. Honestly, this is a great chat. So I appreciate you having me on. It's been awesome. And you're a freaking weapon. Like, got a newborn baby, got new businesses going all the time. I just think you're an inspiration. So thank you for having me on. It's an absolute pleasure and an honor.
Oh, thanks, doll.
You're welcome.